to kick it off, I'm going to let everyone introduce themselves and sort of share a little bit of their thesis on AI and how they're thinking about deploying in the space before we get into what it means for multi-chain. So Jake?
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Jake Brukhman, founder and CEO of CoinFund. We're a blockchain-focused investment firm founded in 2015. And we have been following AI for a while and investing in the intersection of AI and Web3, what a lot of people call decentralized AI these days, since about 2020. Thesis. One way I like to frame it is, what is Web3 good for? If you ask me, it's good for self-sovereign data, and it's good for building decentralized public goods. And everything else, is not as important, if you ask me. But if you take those primitives, where can you get the biggest leverage by applying them? I would argue AI is a pretty good space for that. For one, AI is a very centralizing force, and these things are poised to suck in more data than big tech companies ever have before. So self-sovereign data becomes really important. And two, I think AI is going to be so pervasive in all aspects of our lives in the future that it should be publicly governed. And I think, decentralized public goods is an interesting way of doing that. So in short, the way we think about investing in this intersection is, can Web3 primitives provide a more democratic platform and operating system for building AI products? And through impacting decentralized training, decentralized inference, the aggregation of compute, productization, research, and so on and so forth, we think and are betting that they can. So that's our thesis.
Awesome. Hey, this is Praneeth. I'm an investment partner at Ethereal Ventures. So Ethereal was formed by what was originally the venture investment team at Consensus. The idea was to really take the same philosophy we had of backing really strong technical teams and supporting them on their journey to become more profitable companies and sustainable networks. And from our standpoint, we've broadly almost always since 2017 been investing a lot on core infrastructure in some sense, but what we are and have been doing for the past 3 quarters is, I think, focus and spend a lot of our time on consumer-facing applications and even investing in these. And the way we look at AI is also through a lens where we want AI and AI applications to maybe leverage what properties blockchains give them and not the other way around, really, and tap into the capabilities of blockchains for what they are, good censorship-resistant timestamping units in some sense, and tap into these. But also, I think one other pillar that we broadly think about is the fact that the way blockchains are today, they seem to be meant to be better used by, if you may call them agents, if you may choose to call them programs or bots. And so if these need to be intelligent, if these need to be controlled by users fundamentally, and if we can tap into blockchain primitives to achieve all of this, that's the way we'd be very happy to work with the intersection of Web3 and AI.
Hi guys, my name is Cheryl. I'm a partner at Dragonfly Capital, usually based in Singapore. So Dragonfly Capital was founded in 2018. We have a team based in New York as well as in Singapore. So been global from day one. Been very active across most of crypto primitives since 2018. Was very early in a lot of the L1 and L2s, and also in a lot of the exchanges in Asia. We feel pretty passionately about decentralized AI. Especially in AI, there is a very centralizing force in, as Jake has mentioned, in both the data as well as the compute. We think AI adds that trustless and permissionless layer to it. That said, we've been a little bit cautious about the space. We think narratives might have gotten a little bit ahead, but we have made several investments in the space that we're super excited about.
Okay, great. This is on? Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Casey. I'm the managing partner of a new fund called Topology, which is doing frontier tech. So not just crypto, but crypto is a big element of what we're looking at. And I think the question was around our thesis in decentralized AI. I'll say something a little net new compared to what everyone said, because I do agree with what everyone said, but moving away from the more ethical or decentralization argument, I think there's another argument to be made of these categories intersecting, and it's that currently in AI, there's a lot of users and really low monetization. These apps are able to have retention, but actually getting to net profit is really hard. And because there's so much M&A upstream that there's really capped upside for investors and for founders. And then on the other hand, you have crypto, which maybe doesn't have many users, but it's incredible at capital formation and really turning our entire economy on its head in terms of how to allocate and move resources. And so if you can combine those with AI being one of the most instrumental and transformative technologies we've ever seen, I think some interesting things can come out of that. So yeah, that's my general thesis on the intersection, and I've made a handful of investments from things like Cusco to Hyperbolic, MyShell. Yeah.
Amazing. So we see sort of the infrastructure layer and then the consumer, or hopefully the end user adoption layer. Can we dive into the infrastructure layer, maybe with you, starting with you, Jake? And how are you thinking about that and multi-chain, or is it something that you're not specifically focusing on?
Well, you mean in AI, the infrastructure layer. So let me start there. Well, I'm a very bottom-up, technical investor, and so when I think about investing in a new area like AI, I'm looking at the tech stack, and this is a new area, so the tech stack gets built bottom-up. So what is the infrastructure in that stack for, decentralized AI? First and foremost, it's the aggregation of resources like GPU and compute in general. Also, storage is actually really important to storing models and be able to verify them. It is the idea of, can we train models in a decentralized way? This is a really interesting area because kind of the traditional consensus is that why would you want to do that? It's really inefficient, and some people say it's impossible. And anyway, the big tech companies already won, right? Well, I actually think that we're going to see a huge shift of this narrative as people start to work on different architectures for AI training, starting with the assumption of a decentralized context. So I think decentralized training not only is possible, but is going to be a very important component of, these public goods that I mentioned before. Decentralized inference is the much more attainable problem that you see in the market today. There's a huge number of kind of inference startups, both general inference and bringing AI inference to smart contracts. Like, for example, Gizatech.xyz is a company in our portfolio that does that. And then I also like to think about what's the next leg of the stack. And I think one thing that's missing, in a large way in decentralized AI is just the data portion. There's a lot of big tech companies with a ton of data. Where is the data coming from for decentralized AI? And so there's a bunch of companies like Bagel, that's looking into vector embeddings data that can be used to fine-tune models. There are other companies working on data labeling using crypto incentives and being able to, or trying to scale that, using that kind of thing. And so that's kind of the infra stack, and then maybe some of the other panelists can talk about what can be built on that, but that's what I think.
And Casey, are you also looking into the more infra stack, and would love to have your perspective too?
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at everything. We do think that AI calls for more infrastructure, and it's not just because infrastructure historically has been a really incredible category, but genuinely from a technological standpoint, we think that there's just, for example, on the L1 side, there might be a new L1 that has ML native data types, and that would make sense from a developer standpoint. And so we're definitely looking at infra. I think on the application side, or like one mental model we have is that there's like AI native crypto and then crypto native AI, and they're different. And I think that both categories are interesting, and it's another way to think about, it's just another bifurcation instead of consumer versus infra. And so on the AI meets crypto side, you have a lot of things like trading bots or AI native strategies, more on like the speculative side. And then on the contrary, then you have things like that Jake's talking about, like data and using crypto incentives to pool resources and distributed compute. And I think right now, the honest truth is we're pre-PMF on any of this. And so we're looking across the board and doing more of a breadth first search here.
On the application side, Praneeth and...
As it relates to applications, I mean, we've actually, even out of Fund 1, invested in recommendation engines for, like NFTs and their communities to be provided different kinds of experiences relating to things that, pertain to, should we say, real-world experiences that people can utilize. But to the points raised earlier by Jake, I think there's a fundamental need to have more data that is ultimately useful and could be aggregated and trained upon and made inference and make useful inferences from in some way, shape, and sense. But I think there's definitely some areas in the stack which do need a lot of infrastructure to be built out. I do agree that AI and the intersection of that with crypto systems today is one that is very nascent and would require a lot of that to be built out in every sense of the term, to be honest. But again, I think we're very happy to kind of see people build crypto primitives and enable people to actually start utilizing agents on top of the same. So, I mean, personally, I've played Dark Forest for a while. I just love the game. And I was extremely thrilled when a bunch of, I think, 17-year-old kids from Ukraine ended up doing some really cool client optimization to blow me out of the water. And I was like, this is pretty awesome. And so I think there's really fun things that one can actually do with blockchains once you actually start involving more intelligent entities. And that's something that's very, very interesting for me.
Yeah, so far we've made investments more on the application layer, but are still kind of waiting to see what happens on the infra layer. I think many times on the infra layer, people sort of start with, okay, let's do some decentralized training, let's do decentralized inference, fine-tuning, model distillation, what name you. But I think the number one question that we always ask is, okay, but why does it have to be decentralized? Is there anyone who wants it to be decentralized, and really start from the demand there? From a technical perspective, like Jake alluded to before, there are a lot of physical constraints that make it extremely difficult. And a lot of what we're talking about here is really kind of at the more research arena right now, especially with bigger model parameters. On the application side, we have made investments into MyShell, which Casey is also involved with. MyShell is one of the applications in which we see that there is a clear demand for. As exemplified in the Web 2 case, it is something like character.ai, already has a ton of usage, it's monetizing in Web 2, but we're really trying to harness the hyper-financialization aspect of crypto and really creating these Web 3 speculators that come in, they're basically financializing, well, they're basically paying up for users so that users don't have to pay the creators and really bootstrapping that financial ecosystem there. So we're pretty much looking for instances wherein the two really complement each other. So far, we have seen more instances of crypto playing a tangential area and making AI applications more useful and more fun to play with. But we'd kind of love to find more investments that are the other way around as well.
Awesome. So we've seen an extraordinary hype around AI in general, but also AI in crypto. What are you guys looking for when you're thinking about a project in terms of founders, audience? I mean, we've seen the crypto native apps be very successful in the crypto native environment. And it's been very hard for crypto dapps to branch out to third-party consumers. So do you think AI is going to change that, and AI and crypto, that confluence of AI and crypto, is that the opportunity for these crypto applications?
What's the question?
Well, I think I think AI could be like a channel for crypto to get adoption. So taking a step back, what do we all collectively want in the blockchain space? We ultimately want the acceptance of our technology as broader infrastructure, and we want the adoption of the applications built on that infrastructure in business and consumer world. And so far, we have been building a lot of supply side technology, and we haven't had that much demand. So I see that AI is one of those things that really brings in consumers and businesses alike, and could be sort of a demand drive. Like consumers and businesses are already demanding AI, and if we can build better products using blockchain technology, then that could be a way that blockchain starts to achieve acceptance and adoption, if that makes sense.
I'm quickly going to touch upon the point you made about founders. I think when Pramod and Himanshu told me that they would be starting Sentient, I was rather confused. But in one way, shape, and sense, when they were speaking about the work they were doing on Sakshi and the ultimate vision they had for essentially what they call trust-free learning, by enabling a long tail of developers and a long tail of developer communities to maybe, actually do fine-tuning on community-curated datasets that would still be private, and help create models that were ultimately community-curated, community-gated, and community loyal, in the sense that these were models that could potentially be run anywhere, but you would still have attribution back to the community. I thought, it's a very, very interesting set of primitives that they are basically defining, and it just alludes to their capabilities in the scientific sphere, where they've been driving a lot of innovation for a lot of other attribution primitives broadly, along with Sriram and a few others. And when you tie that with Sandeep, whose energy is extremely relentless, and he still has hunger after, 7 years in the blockchain space, which is a very rare thing that we have to see and acknowledge in a founder. I think that made it something that we'd be very, very happy to kind of keep supporting from our side. So I just wanted to fill that in from the founder side to address your question there.
Casey?
Sorry, was the question what kind of founders we're looking for?
Yeah, what are you looking for in founders? Is it different than founders in the Web3 space? Are you looking for more deep experience or PhDs?
Yeah. I think it depends
AI?
on which part of the stack within AI crypto they're sitting on. Definitely for the infra stack, so far a lot of our founders that we have backed have had very heavy AI native backgrounds, because we're always looking for, whenever portfolios come and work with us, it's really a marriage, and we think that what we have to offer is really kind of more expertise on the crypto side, but we can't help with AI as much. And so we have so far been backing a lot of PhDs, academics, who also happen to have a BD native person on their team as well. On the application layer, I would say it could be slightly different. For example, in the call it data labeling side, many times getting the supply is really a on the ground go to market, and what we're looking for is really how do you think about QA. And so the skills that you're needed there are kind of different. So it really depends, is the quick answer to your question.
Casey, any perspective?
Yeah, I definitely think the traits we look for in Web3 founders are different than Web2 founders. And I feel that maybe one of the most concrete differences is that in Web3, the industry is run on tribal knowledge, where no one really talks about how it works under the hood. And the reason I feel that is because there's so much regulatory gray area still that it's just positioned. There's like these market dynamics where if you're a second time founder, you are at a vast advantage. And if you juxtapose that with AI, it's actually very different where running an AI company, that knowledge or understanding is democratized. And I don't think there's as much as an arbitrage where like if you're a second time founder in AI or a first time founder, I actually feel like you're a lot similar because there's all these big players like OpenAI trying to teach people how to operate and like doing, you know, open source repos on the best practices with prompt engineering. I don't think we have the equivalent of like an OpenAI in crypto for a variety of reasons again. So I agreed. Yeah. Jake, do you disagree?
No, I was just going to add, like along these same lines, that there feels like there's kind of a, you know, just like Web3 world and Web2 world are sort of these two separate worlds that are kind of slowly converging. There feels to be a bit of a cultural divide in, you know, Web3 AI and traditional AI as well. Web3 founders are like builders, right? They love to jump in and build stuff, and they're diving headfirst into all the new technology that is available from the AI space, but they also have less of maybe like an academic foundation in AI, maybe like less pedigree in terms of studying it and so on. And then on the traditional AI side, you know, where you went to school really matters. Who your boss at Amazon was really matters for credibility. And people have those kinds of pedigrees and foundations. They also might be experienced founders, but in a very Web 2 way. And only now are they starting to sort of acquiesce the fact that, okay, there's these new decentralization primitives that can actually help us to do what we're trying to do. And I'll say one last thing. That gap is also being slowly bridged as these two kind of communities are converging. You know, for example, you have, you know, Ilya, the CEO of Near, is an author on the Attention is All You Need paper. And so here's someone who's working in, or has worked in both fields. Or like Ahmad Mustake was a crypto founder in 2017 and an AI founder in 2023. And there's a bunch of other people sort of on that intersection as well, and we'll see more and more and more of that.
And that brings me, unless you wanted to add something, that brings me to another question about, you know, business models and the way that, you know, Web3 is so different from Web2 applications and then monetization on the infrastructure side. I think, you know, we've constantly heard, you know, where's the business case? How are you making money? And that's not kind of the consideration or the first consideration, I would say, in some Web3 project. It's more about adoption and making sure that the token has velocity and usage. So how do you see that play in the AI with the intersection of crypto, where you have, you know, people from Web 2 coming in with probably more SaaS model, you know, perspective, and trying to create these decentralized AI applications or infrastructure?
So I think there is a business, like a Web3 native business model that has, you know, really kept the industry afloat, which is that, you know, if you're an infrastructure builder in Web3, your first set of customers is Web3 customers. But when I think about, you know, decentralized AI, I actually don't think it makes that much sense for Web3 AI to sell to Web3. I think what Web3 AI needs to do is bridge the gap and sell to Web2 and show and demonstrate that Web3 adds properties to these products that are actually highly desirable by traditional players. This could be cost. This could be like the privacy of your compute. This could be adding token incentives that make a data labeling company's sort of supply side model more efficient, right? And today, like some AI people kind of hate the idea of crypto. And we have this challenge to actually say, no, wait a minute, like here is why Web3 is actually better than Web2. And if we can't do that, I think we fail.
Praneeth?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably going to say that it's actually helpful to get a level of hard-headedness in terms of building a company, because what we typically do today is developers develop a product, but they conflate that with company building, which is a very fundamentally different proposition. And if you throw the notion of research into the mix, I think everything gets very muddied up when you confuse alignment with your community and agreement with be it developers or with academics as a sign that a proposition that you make is in fact commercially viable. And so I feel we should, to Jake's point, I guess, keep getting more people, like real people, using whatever we're building through Web3 AI or otherwise, and actually show them the value proposition of what we're actually crafting here today. And if it makes sense, if there's a need for, like enabling privacy preserving AI, if there's a need to actually do federated machine learning, and there's maybe like broader macro trends which would be shaping up soon, given how quickly governments are and larger corporations are taking notice of how their data, how their IP is being utilized. And so there's definitely tailwinds that we have, but I think those should be channeled properly. And for that, I think we need someone who's had their head in the real world and can actually channel those towards making these products better and more applicable.
Cheryl, how are you thinking about business models when you invest?
No, I agree with Jake and Praneeth. I don't think I have too much more to add. But I think fundamentally, all of us kind of are pretty early stage investors in AI. AI crypto is a very early space right now. It's very nascent. Yeah. Let's get things to work first. Let's get things that people actually want and demand and fulfill those needs. And then we can start talking about differentiation after differentiation. If you're building something that people need, is highly differentiated, I think the business model will follow. But we're just not quite there yet.
Did you want to add anything?
That was good. We'll finish there on that question.
So we're at the Chain Fusion Day, and a lot of the talks surround ourselves with multi-chain, and wanted to pick your brain a little bit on your perspective for AI and multi-chain, and how also you're thinking about that when you invest or as a go-to-market strategy. So maybe start with Casey.
Yeah, I think that chain agnostic solutions are going to work. We'll start there. And I think that historically in crypto, liquidity has been a massive moat. And that's not solely, but definitely a large factor in Ethereum's market domination, because it's a network effect. And a lot of developers kind of being close to that side, given I try to live more on the engineering front, they don't want to build on anything else because they don't have the same distribution. And so once we solve the chain agnostic problem, so much changes, I think. I think it's extremely underrated how much the market dynamics shift when developers aren't thinking, oh my gosh, I have to build on this because then I can have actual users. And so getting this back to AI, when you think about, one of the bigger categories right now in AI is agentic flows and agentic orchestration. And these agents naturally are going to have to be cross-chain. They don't have to be, but in this future that we're all aspiring to, where these agentic software is acting on our behalf, they're probably not isolated to one chain. And so I don't know if that's exactly an answer to the question, but that's generally kind of the components I'm thinking about. It's that multi-chain world is happening, and it's going to be massive. It's going to shift everything. And then agents are going to be a really incredible application, kind of showcasing the, I guess, power of being multi-chain.
Jake or Praneeth?
Well, I think that a lot of the infrastructural technology in the AI stack, in the decentralized AI stack, are not like in and of themselves chains. They're actually they look more like, deepen networks or kind of decentralized networks of nodes that do stuff, and then they drop in a chain to have a asset layer or a financialization layer or payments, right? And so, I mean, from the very early days that I've been thinking about blockchains, my thesis has always been like multi-chain proliferation and a lot of interoperability between chains. And I think we see a lot of that today. Like the chains have proliferated significantly since, since the invention of Bitcoin, let's say. And interoperability is coming into play now. Like we're seeing a lot of chain abstraction, account abstraction, interoperability technology, bridges, and so on and so forth. And so I think like in some ways, the decentralized networks of AI and blockchains are kind of orthogonal but complementary. And I don't think like any particular network will be beholden to any particular chain. So I think those things are compatible.
I have 2 points here to speak about. The first is the notion of asynchronous systems, and that is what the world primarily uses today. Whenever you think about connecting 2 domains, I don't think people expect instant settlement. They don't expect instant execution. I think people are very reliant on more or so well-established interfaces and commitments to what each service should be delivering. And so that is a model which is extremely prevalent in real-world services today. And I think developers should make use of that to the extent possible in even the blockchain domain. And this, I guess, ties into the second point that I have, which is to say that it's more so that applications, again, should leverage the capabilities of blockchains and not the other way around. So I think applications should not be constrained by the limitations of the runtime that they're on, but more so, I think applications should be choosing to pick and use components that they want and make sure that they're actually functioning and delivering a value proposition that outshoots and exceeds what is possible with real-world services today. And that is what we are seeing with more application developers looking to do their own form of application-specific sequencing. They want to do more attributable security through things like restaking. They want to do things that make it much easier for the users to interface with these applications. And so we broadly are moving towards that form of a world, and I think that is how application developers should make their applications.
Any other comments? No. So as a last question, I wanted to go into some of your favorite investments. I'm not, don't choose your children, but if you want to share 1 or 2 investments that you did that you think are, promising for you guys and that you're really excited about, I think that would be great. And also, is there any area of the sort of AI stack that you're uncertain about or that you think has less opportunity at this stage? Maybe not in the future, but at least at this stage, whether it's from a monetization perspective or from a technical feasibility perspective, would be great to have your views.
So hard. I guess I'll mention 2. One is we recently backed a pre-seed round of a company working a really difficult problem, which is decentralized training. That company is called, the working name is Pluralis.ai. One of the reasons it's a favorite is just because of the contrarian nature of that thesis. I really think that we can make a lot of progress in this area. It's worth working on, and we want to see a world where we can democratize training and have large networks that can deliver like large intelligent models that are also commercially viable. And I think that this company will do that. Another one is WorldCoin, which really is our first AI investment that we made at the end of 2020. And I think WorldCoin speaks to the idea of bridging the gap between Web3 and Web2. This is a project that I cannot name another proof of humanity project that is more Web3 values compatible than WorldCoin in how it uses privacy technology, zero knowledge proofs, MPC, and so forth to preserve user data, to make the network really robust. I think it has incredible opportunities to innovate. Like, for example, if you're human, you might not have to pay transaction fees on the WorldCoin's chain, but bots will. And I also think that it is it has an adoption strategy that's speaking to real adoption. Like the run rate of user acquisition WorldCoin, varies between like 5 and 10 million user run rate these days. They only launched last summer, so they've been out for about a year. I think they haven't checked the latest numbers, but I think over 4 million signups right now. They've hit 1 million DAUs in their app. And this is all on like a small number of WorldCoin devices that are out in the world, like hundreds of them versus like thousands or tens of thousands. So, I think WorldCoin is an incredible project and will be very big.
I already mentioned Sentient. I can speak about one of our portfolio companies, which was actually recently acquired by Consensus. It's called Wallet Guard. We're using quite sophisticated machine learning methodologies to even detect things like domain phishing and actually doing things that were protecting users from, like interacting with phishing websites or with malicious contracts, and they received really, really good feedback from all of the users that they had, and they were just spiking in terms of like the utilization rate that they had seen. And that's probably why MetaMask found them really interesting to kind of bring in the fold. So that's one. And the other aspect I would probably call out is I was extremely fascinated by things like Reflexer, which Reflexer Finance, or the stablecoin RAI. It didn't work completely, but the notion of bringing like closed-loop PID controller systems to function in a fully autonomous on-chain manner is something that's really, really fascinating. And so when we backed Entropy, which is a decentralized network for agents, as they call it, but it's in theory, it's essentially a decentralized custody solution, putting it very simply, which can look at policies that are being enforced at the network level and then provide signatures to execute on-chain actions. And I think about the capabilities of what this network can bring in and really actually have like fully autonomous closed loop agents acting, which is a really, really fascinating outcome. I do not know what this would look like, but I think it opens up a lot of space for innovation.
I already spoke about MyShell during the introduction. Another one that we have in the portfolio is called Kaido. So it's predominantly a on-chain data analytics platform, but it really is kind of supercharged by AI. I think it's been gaining a lot of momentum because a lot of its sentiment analysis has really gotten into mainstream media. So that one we're pretty proud of. That one is already monetizing, since given that you talked about business model. Quite a few different VC funds and institutions in the space already are using Kaido. Other than MyShell, Kaido, we have another portfolio called Protea. I think other companies that might be interesting in this space, which we haven't quite looked at, I think model compression is pretty interesting. Compressing models such that they can be run on local devices in which you are able to have privacy of data. For example, today I might not want Siri to have access to my Gmail, to my calendar, but a startup called Exo is pretty much working on this, in which using model compression techniques, they are able to run interesting models on top of your local encrypted data. That seems to be pretty interesting. So there continues to be quite a few interesting niches in the space that we're kind of keeping an eye on.
I agree with everything you just said. I just want to say that. I think edge compute is just one of the most underrated categories that's going to work. Okay, I did mention Cusco already, but because we want to be more practical and kind of give some use cases, I'll actually dig into that one. So the reason I really think this network is interesting, or actually just to zoom out quickly, to compare against like Jake's decentralized training, Cusco is doing decentralized inference. And the belief there is that we have so much spare compute on a consumer level, and that aggregating that compute might give us a cost advantage compared to centralized providers. And it's actually live today, which is interesting because most of these decentralized AI projects are more in R&D phase. And so if anybody wants to contribute their compute, they can actually just go to Cusco and start offering up their soon CPU, GPU, both, and then get paid out in tokens for having that part of like a mesh network. And so yeah, I think that's like a very concrete use case that might materialize in the near term.
Thank you. So we have a few minutes left. If anyone in the audience had any questions, happy to take them. Oh, can someone bring a mic? Or come forward and... Oh, it's a joke?
I think he's on one air.
Okay, let's keep it serious. What's your most bullish on the nearest project which are going to launch?
Wait, sorry, can you repeat that?
Which project you're looking for in the nearest future?
What projects are we looking
Yes.
for in the near future?
Yes.
Okay.
Looking forward to.
Oh. Anyone?
I mean, I mentioned XO previously, that we're looking forward to seeing what they do from a use case perspective. Another one that I think I'm keeping my eye on is what's happening at OLAS network. So the first use case that a lot of their agents are actually going for today is in prediction markets. And if you look at 20% of Gnosis transactions are actually going through that. So I'm kind of keeping my eye on that.
I'm broadly curious, actually, about what the future of wallets will look like. I don't think we'll call them wallets, but I think it'll be much more natural and intelligent interfaces with which users will interface with applications running on top of blockchain. So if that makes sense.
I'm looking forward to BlackRock CEO Larry Fink's instant settlement stock exchange that he's launching in Texas, because I think it will do more for blockchain adoption than almost everything that we talked about today.
All right. Well, on these wise words and the future, I want to thank our panelists for being here today. A big round of applause. And they're available afterwards.